Journey IFC strives to create safe spaces to worship God. Know that you are welcome just as you are, regardless of religious background or lack thereof, skin color, political affiliation, sexuality, age, culture, or any other label you own or society throws on you. You are welcomed and celebrated here just as you are.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Susan, and I'm a journeyer. This reading comes from Mark 7, 24 to 30. Our reading today comes from the Jesus story called Mark, and is found in chapter 7. We will read of a time where Jesus learned about some other duties that he was about to neglect in his work. In this story, Jesus changes and grows his ministry with the help from a woman with Syrophoenician origins. From there, Jesus set out and went away to the region of Tyre and Sidon, a Gentile region in the north. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile of Syrophoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the little dogs." But she answered to him, "Sir, even the little dogs under the table eat the little children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." So she went home and found the little child lying on the bed, and the demon was gone.
Okay, welcome everyone. Today our story is a little frustrating, I think. It's a time when I'm like, come on, Jesus, that's not cool. But in reading this, I thought of a time in college when I was in Kerrville at Shriner University, which is just outside of San Antonio. And at that time, my sister lived in Boerne, which was kind of halfway in between Kerrville and San Antonio. And so anytime I'd go to San Antonio, often I would stop and see her. But one day I was, being a brave college student, I had my friends, we were going to go all the way to the Riverwalk, and we were going to explore and go to the Mercado there. We were really excited, and so we get in the car, we get packed up, and we're driving, we're heading on our way, and I start noticing my arms are itching. I'm like, oh no, and it happened a couple times before, and I was like, well, my arms get itchy, I don't know what that is. But as I was driving, my arms got more and more itchy. They were like burning, and then I looked and I was getting hives up my arms. Oh, no. And I was like freaked out. And this was already a scary thing, because I was going on this trip. I was finally being an adult and going to San Antonio. I was a little nervous about that. I didn't know how much parking was going to be. I didn't know how much food was going to be. I was just afraid I didn't have enough money to get through the trip. And so I called my sister, and I was like, hey, do y'all have Benadryl at your house? I'll stop and just get some. I'm breaking out in hives. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I can afford Benadryl right now, and all the other things I have to buy. And so my sister is like, well, I'm not home, but let me call my husband, Kellen, and I'll see if he's watching right now. This makes him look really great. And so he was like, hey, I don't have any Benadryl at the house, but I can meet you at CVS and get you some if you can't buy it yourself. And I was like, thanks. So he comes to the CVS, and we meet up halfway in San Antonio. He gives me the Benadryl. I get to take it with me even. I take it, the hives go away, I go about the trip, it's great, it's awesome. But we go into San Antonio, we do our thing, and we come back and we stop at the Target at the Rim. I don't know if you're familiar with the Rim at all, but it's kind of on the way back. And so we stop there, and I run into my sister, of all people, and her husband, who had come to Target, and she's like, you made me buy you Benadryl, but now you're going to shop at Target? And it was just this ridiculous story where I just was so afraid of not having enough that I was debilitated, and I was scared, and I needed help, and my brother-in-law came to save the day. And I was so grateful for him. And as I thought about this story and that story, I thought about Jesus and his fear of not having enough in this moment. So at this point in the Gospel of Mark, right before this, Jesus goes to the kind of Jewish elites there, and he's arguing with them or telling them what to do, and he's talking about hypocrisy and saying, you're putting your tradition over the commandments to love people and do all these things, but you're not living a true faith. You're putting tradition before people. And so it's all about hypocrisy, and then it goes into this interesting story where Jesus, probably exhausted by this argument with these elite men and women, he goes away. He tries to get away from it all, and so he goes to this region that's up in the north, and it's known for being Gentile, so it's non-Jews in this area. And this probably was an intentional move because he wanted to get away. And so he was going up here, what's called a retreat. I think that's what Nathalie talked about whenever we were talking about the scripture. This is his retreat. He's getting away, and he doesn't want anyone to know he was there. But that doesn't work out, does it? And this move is kind of typical for Jesus. What we've seen in Mark so far is that Jesus doesn't want people to know that he's doing these amazing things. He's healing people. We've heard all these different times he's healed, and he's traveling, he's doing these stuff, but every time he does it, he says, but don't tell anyone. And then he immediately moves on to the next thing. Don't tell anyone, and immediately moves. It's fast-paced, it's ongoing, it's exhausting. It's like Burnout 101. This is how you wear yourself out. And so Jesus is just trying to get away, trying to be alone. But he can't escape notice, of course. The word is spreading way faster than he can stop it. And so this woman comes to this house where he's hiding out, and she finds him, and she asks for help for her daughter, who has an unclean spirit, as it says in the scriptures. And we learn that she's of Syrophoenician origin, so she's a non-Jew. They're in a non-Jew area. It makes sense that she is there. But she's seen as kind of the foreigner in this story, even though Jesus is really the foreigner. But what we learn is that she's a woman, she's an outsider, she's a non-Jew, so at that point we should count her out, right? Which is, she's not who Jesus is looking for. And so what she does is she begs Jesus in her humble place, she begs him, saying, can you please get this demon out of my daughter? And so she drops to Jesus' feet and begs him. And this should remind us of the story about Jairus and his daughter that died and Jesus brought back, resurrected. It's a very similar story where the person comes to Jesus and falls at his feet and is just hoping for a healing, some chance, some crumb of help. But the only difference between this story and Jairus is that Jairus was an elite Jew, so it made sense that Jesus would help him. But the Syrophoenician woman and her daughter don't seem like they're going to get the same help. And then Jesus says the rudest thing. He has real sassy Jesus vibes right here. He says, let the children be fed first. It's not fair to throw the children's food to the dogs. And what he means by this is that don't give all the blessings away when I'm trying to help the Israelite people. I came here to help and save these people, these particular people here, the Jews. That's my first job, is to help save the Jews. And so he said, I don't have enough energy to also save you, you Gentile Syrophoenician woman. And this is an interesting flip because at this region, she was actually probably in the majority. She was one of the Gentiles. And at this point, the Gentiles had more money, and they kind of were oppressing the Jews. So when Jesus gives this sassy response, it's probably coming from a place of hurt, of anger for his people. But this woman doesn't let him get off the hook. She's different. She says something that's pretty courageous. She says, even the dogs under the table eat the little children's crumbs. It's a beautiful reframe of what Jesus said. She uses his own logic, this idea, okay, if you're going to say that the dogs, we don't feed them, we have to feed the kids first, I'm going to show you that your logic also means that I have to get something too, that I'm included in this story. And Jesus, overwhelmed probably by his own humility, in the moment completely flips and he says, because of what you've said, the demon has left your daughter. In this moment, Jesus heals someone from a distance. He's not even with the daughter, and he's able to heal her. That's how powerful Jesus was. And that's how simple it could be, even for someone who wasn't a Jew. When you're reading this and looking at the language, I really tried to stress it in here about the little dogs and the crumbs and all of these small things. Even the demon, that's a small thing. They're called diminutives. I had to look this up, so I'm not going to act like I'm an expert in this.
or
And so in this, there are 8 diminutives used, and this is when you take a word and you add something to it to make it smaller. So in Spanish, if you say like patito, that's taking pato, which is duck, and making it a little duck. And so all of these words with demon, with child, with the crumbs, with these dogs, it's all taking things and making them smaller. And it's kind of what Jesus is doing to this woman. He's taking her existence and making it smaller. At this point, Jesus is talking from a place of privilege and a very hierarchical kind of view of the world where I can only help these people and I can't lower myself to help you. But something about all of this little language, about the little domesticated dogs, the little crumbs, all of it, reminds me about the micro aspects of the story and also the small details that are needed for real relationship. This story reminds us that it's not always about the universals. Yes, we can read this story and probably get some universal truth out of it, but really the story is about small people, small moments that matter. And that's what this story is really about for me, is that Jesus was in relationship in this small moment and had a small change that forever changed his path and this woman's life. And it's interesting because this story follows a warning all about hypocrisy. Jesus was just telling people, you gotta live up to what you say you're gonna do. And in this moment, he's having to face his own hypocrisy. He's having to, take the foot out of his mouth and be like, oh, you're right. I can help you as well. In this moment, the Syrophoenician woman becomes a prophet because she's teaching Jesus a new way. She even converts him to this new way of being and serving in the world. All social conventions are turned on their head. This woman, this outsider, this Gentile, is teaching Jesus how to live. But what does this teach us about Jesus in the story? Well, I think it shows us that although Jesus was fully divine and fully God, Jesus was also fully human and fully imperfect, just like us. And at this moment, Jesus is exhausted. He's done so much work. And through Mark, it's fast-paced, and he's just trying to get a break and trying to get away from it all, and I totally understand it. That's why I went to the beach last week. I needed a break too. And I think in this moment, Jesus is scared of the power that he holds. I think he's scared of his own abilities because he's been able to heal all these people, but he's like, will this happen again? Am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to have enough energy to help all these people that come to me? What if I fail? What if I don't live up to the word that's spreading faster than I can stop it? Jesus faces his own hypocrisy in this moment, which is interesting because I've heard if you preach something, you should expect to see it in that next week. And I can say that is the truth. So I'd probably be humbled this week too. But I think Jesus was having to live out his own words. And the Syrophoenician woman helped him do that. Jesus got so caught up in his work, his mission, his life, his goals, his aspirations, that he neglected parts of his job that he may not have expected he had to do. Maybe Jesus knew that his career was going to be cut short. Maybe he feared the amount of work that was ahead of him. He knew what was coming. Maybe he was just grumpy and tired and simply human. Whatever it was, Jesus fell short in this moment. But something happened that changed Jesus. He was reinvigorated by this woman. In this moment, the Syrophoenician woman spoke to him in such a way that it changed him. It re-altered his perspective. And it in fact allowed him to heal someone from a distance. It gave him more power. It showed them that in this weak, exhausted moment, a reframe could give him enough to get through. The Syrophoenician showed him that there is always enough. And the healing goes both ways, right? Because the girl, she's freed from this demon possession from a distance, but Jesus is also freed from the restraints of segregated-minded ministry. He's freed from this limited view of who can be saved, who's in and who's out. His ministry is opened up to a wider group of people. This woman's life, along with Jesus' life, is changed forever. Miracles happen in both of their lives that day. This story reminds me of that time in college with the hives on my arms and that fear of not having enough. financially, physically, to make the journey home. And my brother-in-law that day, who was willing to step up and save me, that's what I think of about the Syrophoenician woman. Someone who was willing to enter in the story and help when the other person was exhausted and scared and feared that there was not enough. So sometimes in our stories, we are the Syrophoenician woman. Sometimes we're the brother-in-law who's able to go to the store and buy some Benadryl for their college-aged brother-in-law. But sometimes we're the ones who have the hives, who are scared, and who are asking for help, fearing scarcity, fearing that there is not enough. The fear of not having enough money or food, like in this story with, healings, that's one thing, but I think this is a fear of also not having enough emotional energy or enough time. It's beyond that. And I think this fear can lead us to forget that there really is enough if we just manage it better. If we just realize that we have something to give and other people have something to give us when we fall short. If we remember that there is room at the table for all of us. Now, no one has to be a dog under the table, that everyone deserves a full meal, not just crumbs. In this story, although she's asking for crumbs, the Syrophoenician woman gets a full healing. She doesn't just get the leftovers, she gets something powerful of her own. And we're included in this blessing as well. So let us go out into the world this week and make room at our tables. Let us care for those we meet, even if it's in the smallest of ways, even if it's just the crumbs. It may happen when we're most exhausted and most overwhelmed with our plans, but we're encouraged to do these small things for those we encounter so that it can lead to healing for all of us in a mutually beneficial way. May we be reminded that in God, in God's kingdom of all of us, the Jews, the Gentiles, everyone in this room even, that there is always enough. And that is our blessing for today. So let it be so. Amen.
Amen. Here we are once again. At the end of our gathering. Journey is a gatherer. But Journey is also a church that scatters. We go out to the world this week. Why not be the crumbs? Because in the gathering of crumbs, it becomes enough. So be the crumbs to the world this week. Bless your fellow humans and think of them as being their enough. God bless you and go.